Hello, I'm Juan Davies, Chief Creative Officer at KCT and PBS SoCal, and I am joined by the newsroom of KPCC and LAist on a daily Reporter Roundup. How is everyone today?
Good, good.
Good.
And joining us today is Executive Editor Megan Garvey. Hello, Megan.
Hello, Juan. I'm happy to be here.
Emily, you published a story about the long history of racism in the Antelope Valley on the same day the family of Robert Fuller, who was found hanging from a tree near Palmdale City Hall, held his funeral.
Right. So I've been talking with folks who live in the Antelope Valley, which is a desert region, about 90-minute drive from LA. And I'm finding that there's a really entrenched kind of history of racism there. There's problems with neo-Nazis and skinheads that have gone back for decades, but there's also systemic racism there stemming from city officials there, from the LA County Housing Authority, from the Sheriff's Department. In the early 2000s, actually, Black renters receiving federal Section 8 housing assistance were calling local community activists, telling them they were being harassed by sheriff deputies, and a U.S. Department of Justice investigation concluded that the sheriff deputies were working with county and city officials to systematically discriminate against Black folks there in order to drive them out of the valley. I talked to one longtime resident, Black resident there, her name is Tony Clark, who said, you know, they don't want Blacks here. So there's still a lot of problems, and that's really fueling the outcry over Fuller's death.
Matt investigated a question a lot of people are asking. If the police aren't social workers, then why are they the first people called when a homeless person is in crisis?
It's a good question, and one that becomes more urgent when you learn that 34% of all reported LAPD use of force encounters last year involved somebody who was experiencing homelessness. So that's about 1 in 3 times the department uses force, it's against an unhoused person, just like in previous years. Now, most of those are not deadly force, but with bodily force. That's something like a restraint or a tackle. And it's largely because police are often the first responders to homelessness, like if someone's in a crisis or if there are complaints about a specific person or a homeless camp. Now, in the wake of the George Floyd protests, advocates say that the use of force rate is much too high and that the police should be replaced with somebody else during nonviolent calls, especially those dealing with homeless residents. Though LA has invested in a big system for homeless services with many social workers, these are not the people who respond immediately to emergencies. Homeless service workers are not 24/7 emergency employees, the police are.
Austin caught up today with Congresswoman Karen Bass.
I did, Megan, and as some people might remember, LA Congresswoman Karen Bass is the lawmaker behind the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed in the House last week. It would ban chokeholds, no-knock warrants in drug cases, and perhaps most importantly, it seeks to reform qualified immunity, which would make it easier to pursue claims against police officers in civil court. Now, Congresswoman Bass is in her 5th term, but she's still getting new attention now, not just for her police reform bill, but also because she's believed to be on the short list of potential vice presidential candidates for the Joe Biden campaign. Now, she wouldn't say whether she was on that list, but she also didn't say she wasn't on that list either.
And finally, John looks back at the legacy of Carl Reiner, who died today at 98 of natural causes at his home in Beverly Hills.
My point about Carl Reiner is that good comedians can tell a funny joke, but great comedians can tell a funny story. And Carl Reiner was a master not only of the punchline, but of the skit. And his work was really dedicated and polished, but it didn't really reveal itself. So the next time you watch a really good comedian tell a story, not just a joke, think of somebody like John Mulaney on Netflix. There is so much of Carl Reiner in that comedy. Carl Reiner was an actor, he was a writer, he was a director, but he was really a mathematician. He put together jokes in this airtight way.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carl Reiner. I was told to say that. I must say that I feel very much at home at this dinner for KCET since
And even though he's no longer with us, I would argue that his sense of comedy and the way that he wrote a joke will be with us for a long time.
It will indeed be with us for a long time, John. Thank you all at the KPCC and LA's newsroom. And thank you for tuning in. Be healthy, take care of your family, of your neighbor, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Juan.